your people's attention once more before you continue. The article, Spectacular Collision of Suns Will Create New Star in Night Sky in 2022. And it says the two stars that were too dim to be seen by the naked eye, but in 2022 they'll be nice and bright in the sky where you don't normally see them. And they're saying that don't panic. It's just going to be
Right.
a normal event. But go ahead now. I like to throw that out there because this story here has got my attention.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Now, as it relates to Maitreya, again, in studying him, what Scripture has to say, what the early church fathers, again, as Catholics, how we always want to try to gain a proper interpretation is to follow those early apostles who were close to Jesus and knew from oral tradition more about the end times and more about the Antichrist figure in general. Now, this Maitreya figure, in general, his name adds up to 666 in a wide swath of languages, including the original Greek that the early church fathers had mentioned. Again, he has connections to this third temple. I can't stress that enough. Many people seem to think, what I hear out in, people who are not Catholic, they automatically run to, well, the Antichrist is going to be Islamic. The reality is that's not what the church taught. The reality is he's actually going to be Jewish. Now, he does have Islamic connections, which I'm going to get to here in a minute, but that ultimately he would deceive the Jews even, and that he would sit in the third temple, the rebuilt third temple. Jerusalem will become, basically the center of the world. And again, the New Jerusalem project, it ties in with the false ecumenism that we're seeing now in the world coming out of the Vatican, where it's trying to make it seem like Christians are equal to Buddhists, and everyone's got their share in this new religion that's forming, and it's all so that it can be umbrellaed under the Antichrist, if you will, because he's going to preach this self-realization program. They'll get rid of the Catholic sacraments in Rome. They're going to implant it with this 5-step self-realization program that you can become a god without grace. The second step in this initiation process, okay, is a counterfeit baptism. So many people get hung up on the mark of the beast, and they actually first will run to the whole microchip thing, which is true, but there's something that precedes this. You actually have to get this counterfeit baptism. You've got to sign yourself over in this Luciferian initiation in order to even get that chip to buy or sell. And proof of that is David Spangler, head of the UN, said exactly the same thing. No one will be able to enter into the New Age without this Luciferic initiation. And we've had all these, theosophists saying the same thing, Blavatsky being one of them. So, and what's interesting to note, too, is I just found this out on their website. Where will these initiations be taking place? In Masonic temples, first and foremost, because there's a direct connection between Freemasonry and the New Age. But then also in these hijacked, quote-unquote, Catholic churches. You see, they're going to persecute the Catholic Church. They'll run priests out, people who abandoned the Catholic faith. They'll actually set up, now get this, people get hung up on the abomination of desolation. Again, I refer back to the early church fathers and what the early saints said. This abomination of desolation is Maitreya's image. They said it would be an image to be set up, and it would be placed not only in the temple, and the church fathers said that literally meant the rebuilt third temple, but then also from a Catholic perspective in Catholic churches, the temple of God, okay? And so you're going to see the Catholic sacrifice being abolished, and they're going to set up Maitreya's image. You can go to Google right now, whoever's in front of their computer, look this up. Go to Tradcat Night, Abomination of Desolation, and search the images and see the pictures I've done on this. You're going to see pictures of Maitreya, and he's giving this hand sign, okay? And it's going to strike you because you see all of your politicians doing it. You've seen anti-Pope Francis doing it. The AOK sign, everyone's probably familiar with that. That's 666, or the sign of the Son of Man. Again, Vatican II, the cult of man. You see Trump doing it. You see anti-Pope Francis doing it. They're all pledging their allegiance eventually to this character. And this is what you're going to see. This image will actually come to life, Scripture says, at a certain point. And whoever doesn't bow down and worship before it will have their heads cut off. It's quite simple. More connection. We know that the Antichrist would arrive very quickly onto the scene. The whole world would see him, basically in an hour. This is what's called the Day of Declaration. Again, after the economic collapse, he'll appear on international TV. And this is where it gets really bizarre because they say they're going to telepathically talk to everyone, and that's not the reality. They've got systems, if you will, weapons of God systems, where they can now interject thoughts into your head. And I thought that was Looney Tunes until I started doing some research on it. Jesse Ventura did a good piece on it called Brain Invaders. Look that up, and you'll see the guy who actually invented this technology, and he said it got hijacked from him, and it's going to be used for very nefarious purposes. So it calls into mind why they're setting up these phony cell towers all over the world, and specifically in this country. It's because you're going to think that something or someone is talking to you on this day of declaration. They call it the planetary day of Pentecost. And so this is why I exercise caution with this. But nevertheless, he's going to introduce his ascended masters onto the scene. We know that the Antichrist first shows up as a man of peace. He doesn't just first show up with horns on his head, and because everyone would identify him. So go to his page and get the feel for Antichrist Maitreya. It's shareinternational.org. Go to Google, shareinternational.org. Type in Maitreya, and you're going to see that he's very lovey-dovey. He's the ultimate humanitarianist, social justice warrior. So he comes first as a man of peace, and then after that first 3.5-year period, he quits with the nice guy routine after the first 3.5 years, and then that's when he lays down the hammer. You'll have to take down the Luciferian initiation. Those who do not will be obviously hunted down. It doesn't even matter if you're Catholic or not. I mean, whoever doesn't want to take this mark will be hunted down, and it brings into question why they're building concentration camps, not only here in America, but I mean it's prevalent even over.
And they got the guillotines too. They ordered a whole bunch of those things too. So maybe they will be chopping heads off. But
that's what Scripture says, Michael.
We've got about another 2-3 minutes to go. So go ahead and get out anything that you like. I'd like to let you know so you don't run out of time, and you could plug.
Sure, yeah. Let me finish up with these points. Okay. He also, in his apologetics, we know from Scripture that he'll facilitate peace. The Antichrist will facilitate "quote unquote" peace in the Middle East. Guess who on their page says that? So Maitreya will eventually come into the picture. He'll facilitate peace between Israel and Iran and the Arab states. Again, as I mentioned, the kind of demons in the air scenario, being connected with the ascended masters. Again, the Antichrist will come onto the world and solve the economic problem, the problem of poverty, homelessness. Guess what? It's all right there in his apologetics, or that connection is there. He will say, he will disregard the desire of women, which is somewhere in Scripture too. I don't have it in front of me, but he is, he's single. There's many suggest that he is a homosexual. I mean, there's no inclination that he's trying to get married. This character. Now, what's also interesting to note is this is something I didn't pick up until the past 3 or 4 months. That we know that he'll be an earthly king eventually. Okay, well, this is where his Islamic connection comes in. He's an 8th descendant in a Sufi caliphate, which would technically make him a king. He's not presenting himself as that right now because the world, is very anti-monarchical, and I would argue to a great degree anti-government just in general. So he wants to kind of show up as a brother as opposed to, a king figure. But I just want to let everyone know that as a backdrop, he has this connection to a Sufi caliphate, which is, very ecumenical, kind of like what's coming out of the Vatican. We already talked about the false prophet coming on the scene, and again, he'll solve the world's economic problem ultimately with the mark of the beast, but it's socialism. The pre-Vatican II popes warned that this new world order would be a one-world socialist republic, and when you go to his page, I warned everyone a year ago, pay attention, coming out of the Vatican, this term sharing, legitimate redistribution of wealth, right? That's what they want to ultimately get across. So the Vatican II social justice program is exactly the same as Maitreya, and that should freak out anyone who professes to be Catholic and truly anyone who's Christian. The bottom line, what I'm saying is all of these roads, I mean, I could go on and on. I just gave you about a dozen of them. All of these connections draw directly to this man, Maitreya, and in my opinion, it's quite possible his more near appearance could be at the end of 2017, maybe in the next few years. But it is imminent now, Michael.
All right. Well, Eric, listen, I thank you so much for being here with me tonight. And we've got to do this again in the near future.